Hello, my name is Joel Ahrens. I'm the treasurer here at Kingswood Church and have been for about the last 15 years. As treasurer, I've had a chance to talk to a number of you about financial questions and processes here at the church, but I thought it would be helpful to give everyone a brief overview of a lot of what goes on here financially, and specifically today about the budget process. So what is an annual budget? The budget's basically a roadmap for the church. It's a guide that we develop that helps us measure how we're actually doing throughout the year compared to how we thought we would be doing. It's made up of two components. One are the expenses, what we spend day in and day out, month in and month out to run the church, and the other is the revenues. Those are the contributions and other donations we receive that keep the church running. The expense budget is developed by staff meeting in October, November each year with the church accountant, giving the church accountant estimates of how much they think it's going to cost the upcoming year to run their programs, their missions and ministries. The children's ministry, the youth ministry, the adult ministry, the music ministry, the worship ministry, all these ministries and many, many more. We need to have some idea of what the people that run those ministries need in the way of funding to meet their goals. And so we put together a detailed expense budget. This budget is reviewed by the Finance Committee in December, finalized in January. The other piece of the budget process is the revenue side of the budget. Revenue is just the contributions we get, primarily from us. The members and friends of Kingswood Church. The pledged contributions are those contributions we make in conjunction with the pledge cards that many of us fill out during the stewardship campaign. Those pledge cards are then used to estimate what we can expect in revenue the following year, but they're not the only component. Another very significant component for those of us who aren't comfortable filling out pledge cards are what we call the non-pledged contributions. Those are also an important component in developing the budget for the following year on the revenue side. Those non-pledged contributions, because we don't have a pledge card to support them, we use an estimate based on what that person may have contributed the previous year and assume that they're going to contribute that same amount the next year, unless we're aware of some specific event or situation that might not make that not possible. So there's two components, the pledged and the non-pledged. Obviously, it's easier on us if everyone would fill out a pledged card, because then we at least have something from each family that tells us what they're thinking as far as the next year's contribution they can make, and that's an important part of the process. But again, if you're not comfortable for whatever reason filling out a pledged card, we're more than happy to work without the pledged cards in developing the next year's budget. So you have revenues that are derived from pledged and non-pledged contributions, in addition to the fundraisers we have, like the auction, the pumpkin patch, the special collections we do like Christmas and Easter, things like that. And the Finance Committee pulls all this information together in January, as well as the expense information that they accumulate in December and January, and finalize a budget that they then take to the Church Council for final approval for this budget. So this will be going on in October, November, December of this year, but it will be for the budget in 2022 or 2023 next year. And it should be approved, if all goes well, at the Church Council meeting in January of 2023. Now you might be wondering, what happens if I don't meet my pledge? Well, nothing happens. It's not like a mortgage where you worry about getting thrown out of your house. The pledge is just a guide we use for developing a budget. We hope we can all meet our pledge, but there are sometimes circumstances that prevent that from happening. What happens if I don't fill out a pledge card? Obviously, again, nothing happens. Again, the pledge card helps us tremendously, but it's not the only tool, and we can work without it. You might wonder, well, what happens if you do a budget and the expenses exceed the revenues? We call that an operating deficit. That means that come in January, when we add everything up, we're disappointed, but sometimes it happens that expenses exceed revenues. In 2022, we estimated that expenses would exceed revenues by $110,000. Obviously, that's not a small number. Now, so far this year, in measuring that budget against our actual, we're doing better than that deficit. Our deficit isn't that large. It's still a deficit, but due to the reserves we're able to carry into this year, we're still doing okay. We're able to keep the lights on, so to speak. You may wonder what happens if revenues exceed expenses. We call that an operating surplus. What do we do with that operating surplus? We hold on to that to cover these years where we're not so fortunate. So our operating surpluses stay in reserve so that they can cover the years where we operate at a deficit. If you want to know what the total budget is for this year the total budget expenses are $807,000. The total revenue budgeted for this year is $697,000. So I just wanted to give you a brief overview of the finances of the church and how the budget process works. We intend to make a Zoom meeting or conference available as we get into the stewardship campaign, where you'll be able to ask any question you want of me, and I'll be more than happy to answer anything else you might wonder about church finances in as much detail as we need to offer. So thank you very much, and have a very nice day.